Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to the MN Viking Zombie YouTube and Twitch channel. My name is Kyle Smith. I'm joined by Adam Carlson. This is his channel. And we
Ayo.
are excited to do another horror movie review on Adam's channel. What's up, man?
I got a little tired of having this movie recommended to me, so I finally decided to check it out.
Who recommended it to you?
Quite a few people, actually, because they know that I don't mind some gore, and zombie movies are some of my favorites. And, whenever any kind of movie comes along that's kind of shocking and tries to push the envelope a little bit, everyone's going to recommend that. I remember when, what was the one with the girl and the boyfriend who go on vacation, and it's basically all shocking kills? Midsummer.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah, it was basically all kind of, trying to get shock and awe kills, and this movie had some of that, but I don't think it was as focused on that as it was some other things. But yeah, Taiwanese horror disaster movie, The Sadness, 2021.
I will say
it's something that's going to be familiar to a lot of people if you have watched a lot of zombie movies. It starts off like almost every other zombie movie. And there's touches of, like, with the pandemic, how there are people that are so worried, and there's others that just don't care and don't believe any of it and think it's all political.
probably my favorite thing right off the bat of this movie that Adam is explaining and talking about here is pardon me. I told Adam before we started I had some cereal to start, and now I'm reaping the effects of drinking milk before doing a podcast.
Milk was a bad choice.
It was such a bad choice. So the cool thing about this movie is if you've seen some zombie horror films, which is Adam's forte, I'm into the spirits and the demons and the conjurings.
Yeah, you like the possession stuff.
I love possession horror, and it scares me still. It gives me the heebie-jeebies a little bit still, even after watching all these years. Adam is our zombie guru and expert, hence the MN Viking zombie.
But it's kind of weird, though, that this is so set up like a zombie movie, but it really isn't a zombie movie.
It's not. The crazy part too, and of course, if you guys are new to this, we do reviews. We are going to spoil it for you, so that's not what you're into. Probably hold off. But when we see the horror movies, at least the ones that I've seen, I know you've seen a lot more than myself, but you see these deranged people who they're not themselves anymore. A virus is completely taken over, and they all turn into the same thing, which is usually flesh-eating, just maniacs. And in this movie, the thing that you only see that separates people from everyone else are the black eyes and the redness around the eyes. You can easily hide that with sunglasses, which we saw in the subway scene, which was pretty brutal. But I like that these people kept some semblance of what they had before.
Well, did you understand why the movie's called The Sadness and why the eyes were puffy and all that?
I didn't. I must have.
Okay, so
after that,
this is a big spoiler. So if you guys don't want to hear this, you might want to move along for now. But these monsters, when they get infected, their only objective is to cause pain on people. They don't care for anything else. They don't want to kill people. They will eat them, but that's not their primary thing. They will bite people because they know it hurts them. But otherwise, they're out to hurt people, and some of them actually turn into masochists and love being hurt.
Yeah, we saw that with the basketball scene, which is really weird.
Which is really crazy, but inside all these people, there still is that human part, and it makes them weep as they're hurting other people and hurting themselves, which is what gives them the sadness.
That makes sense. Looking at it now, that definitely makes sense.
But the movie's centered around a couple that lives in an apartment, and she goes to work, and he goes to his job, and they get separated, and what they want to do is they want to reunite, like pretty much all horror movies. The main characters want to get back together. And that journey turns out to be pretty wild.
What I enjoy, and this was on at one of my favorite restaurants the other day around here that I go to for lunch. It's the Owen Wilson movie. It's not a zombie movie, but he's overseas. I think he's in an Asian country, and there's a riot that starts. There's a slow build like that. I immediately thought of that movie. Maybe it was because I saw it recently, but it was crazy because the movie starts off slow, which I enjoy because you get to see the little things that you want to develop to see who you like in the movie, who's the antagonist, who's the protagonist, all that fun stuff. And you even see the neighbor, which you'll eventually see later.
They introduce things quick with the neighbor because at first you're trying to figure out what these people are, but when the zombie, what you think is going to be a zombie, ends up talking, like making logical conversation while using weapons, it's just like, this is something completely new, something very different.
So I had this ready. I know it's going to be bright because I have my stuff ready and then I got out of full screen. But the two main characters we have are Jim and Kat. Kat by Regina Leigh, and then Jim by Barant Zhu. They're a young couple in love, and they're talking about going on vacation. And you see the little things that I cling on to, just why a writer or director put it in there. But they're talking about going on vacation. They're scheduling conflict. She says, I was wanting to get away. You told me we were going to go. Now you're saying you have to work. And he ends up coming around, as most good boyfriends do. And they say, hey, look, I'll make it work. I don't have to go to work. We can do this. Let's go. And there's a nice gesture as they're starting their day. He's taking her to work. He's like, I'll make dinner tonight. And right before that scene, you see something that is odd. And you wonder if it's like a premonition or just a vision. But young Jim, the young guy's 20, 22 years old. He's looking out of his apartment and he sees an old lady in a white dress. And he feels the need to call out to see if she's okay. He turns around and she's completely bloody in the middle of her dress. And his girlfriend startles him and he looks out and he notices she's not there anymore. I thought for this scene, maybe he's just has a vision that he knows some danger is coming. But we end up seeing that she makes an appearance later, which was very creepy. And I
was waiting to see if she was going to like run and jump and rooftop stuff. And because I had no idea what to expect coming into this movie. And as I was watching it all unfold, it started making sense.
Right.
What they wanted to do with it. It started out not as super gory, but a little bit more vicious, like where some of the infected were holding someone down and breaking his arm.
Yeah, and like you said, for the reason of the title of the movie, the sadness, to cause pain, you see these super painful ways that people get attacked in this movie. Lots of stabbing, of stabbing.
Especially when you get to the subway.
Oof. That subway scene was genius. That probably is one of my favorite parts of the movie, just how it was set up.
And there are some scenes, if you are visually squeamish, the old school, like everything covered in blood and people just like, either hurting each other or, doing the nasty in the blood. It's so there.
Gross. Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought that up. Throw that out there for everyone. If blood makes your stomach turn, this might not be the movie for you. There's a lot of blood.
It doesn't start out super bloody, but man, it gets there.
And I was going to say too, I forgot it as I was setting up the banners and stuff for our background here. Like this is the appropriate background for this movie. I went to use the restroom, throw a hoodie on before we started. And I was like, what band is like, oh, it's the old AC/DC song. If you want blood, you've got it. That is the theme song of this movie. Give it about 20 minutes. And then once it starts, it doesn't stop. But anyways, back to the plot. You see this old woman I was talking about. Jim is ordering breakfast. She wanders into a restaurant. And on the way, you see Jim seeing kind of like foreshadowing of there's going to be something happening here soon. People are dead. There's a bloody body bag out by an ambulance. And then the old lady comes in. A guy in the restaurant recognizes, said, hey, Grandma, like, are you okay? What are you doing here? And then the chaos just starts out of nowhere.
Here comes the face melting.
Face melting. There's people getting stabbed. And then you think, okay, like we had just mentioned earlier in the podcast is, okay, these people are crazy. They're deranged, blah, blah, blah. No, you see a formal conversation happening with a woman with black eyes, puffiness around those eyes. And it is purely creepy. And I loved it so much because I was like, oh, this actually makes me have goosebumps. And she calls Jim a handsome boy and starts walking towards him.
It is weird that some of the scenes in this movie that stick with you the most don't even really involve the creatures. When the old man was sitting next to the woman on the train.
Yep.
And he was, in essence, hitting on her. And she was like, leave me alone. And he wouldn't. Mm-hmm. And then he started getting all huffy about it. Like, all I was trying to do was tell you you were beautiful, and I can't do that. And it's like, whoa, calm down, buddy.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in this movie, handful of times that it'll make you uncomfortable, and it'll test you in your uncomfortableness. But that was another one, and that's pretty close to right after the diner scene. Jim figures out, like something's wrong. So his first instinct, like a lot of us, is to go home, isolate. Finds his neighbor in there, which I felt really bad for him because I knew it was going to happen by the way it was set up. His neighbor comes at him with hedge clippers and he grabs them. I was like, that's such a bad idea. That's the first thing in the movie that gave me anxiety.
It did stop him from getting his throat cut, though. I mean,
it did, which is better in essence, but
he took that finger chop like a champ.
Oh, dude, you're going to lose your digits, man. You have to get your hand out of there.
And then hopping on that Vespa and having everybody chase him, that was a good scene as well.
Yeah. It's a good build-up. There's good tension built in the movie. Meanwhile, Jim's trying to get a hold of his girlfriend, Kat. Sorry, I'm going to.
But I do have to ask this: were you compelled? Like, were you super compelled to want to see the two main characters get back together at the end? Did that work for you?
I didn't mind that they didn't get together at the end because logically,
But as you're watching the movie, did that point drive for you to want to see that happen?
Here's why. I'll say yes, but the reason why is there's two different stories going on, but they both held my attention. The one for Jim is how long can you last? You're injured, which is never good in a zombie movie. The injured people, I'm almost immediately saying you're going to be killed sooner than later. And then Kat, she's been through the ringer today, and she's a fighter. And I'm wondering,
and she's looking out for everybody else as well as she can.
Yeah, we're going to get into that soon. That poor girl. But I'm wondering, like, okay, Kat's a fighter. I'm wondering what the end result is for her. And when they finally do cross over, you assume that they will because it's a movie. I was just curious at what point they would, intersect, because up until the point we see Jim at the hospital, which we'll talk about later, he was fine, or it seemed like he was fine.
Right.
So it's kind of a shock and a twist there, but it was a good twist.
I like movies that don't always end so Hollywood happy,
Oh, this one, yeah, that's another good point. This movie, if you're looking for like answers or the happy ending, you're not going to get that here. And I think it's right on par for what this movie is and what it was trying to be. And I appreciated it. But I want to go to the main villain in this movie because I didn't expect it at all. You figure in a zombie movie, like some of the zombie movies have a main, antagonist, whatever. But I did not know that it was going to be the businessman that Adam was talking about on the subway. And he is a menace. He hits on Kat, and he is just very rude about it. You kind of want to feel bad for him at some point because you think, okay, maybe this was genuine. But then you notice very quickly when he gets angry about his advances being called out, he's like calling Kat a bitch and saying, you're pretty. That's the only reason why you get away with treating people like crap. And then enters an infected person who just wreaks havoc. And, we talk about how these people are deranged. They're sadists. They're psychos, and they want to cause pain. And they'll do anything they can to do that in the most brutal ways possible. But the thing that struck me the most is there are undertones of the pandemic, right? As you mentioned, because this was in 2021. Think about how fast this stuff would have spread if this were a real life situation. They are on a subway. These people are trapped, so they have no way to get out of there unscathed. And then you let them off in a completely different town, and it spreads like wildfire. That was the crazy part for me. I was like, this is pretty smart.
They were even talking about that on the news in the background of that first scene.
Right.
About how fast it can spread with an airplane.
What was that?
About how fast an epidemic like that can spread just by hopping on an airplane.
Right. I thought it was
because there was a debate between two business people about the spread.
I thought it was pretty good too because of what we've went through in the last, and I thought about it today. It's January of 2023 when we're recording this, January 19th to be exact, on a Thursday, and how the world changed pretty soon coming up here 3 years ago. And a lot of things shaped us, and they definitely have some homage to that. Especially Adam mentioned it before. I know I mentioned it twice now, but you have your right-wing neighbor that thinks it's all a hoax, and then you find out, well, maybe it's real. I don't know. And they
Pretty
gave it
convenient. It's an election year.
yeah. Yeah, it's all these undertones, man, and that struck me too. The subway scene is very good. It reminded me of a little bit, obviously, because they're enclosed, and the general idea of that scene in the new Texas Chainsaw, where you're like, "Oh no, these poor, there's nobody's going to live through this. Like nobody's surviving this because they can't leave."
I thought it was like a miniature homage to Old Boy.
Oh man, such a good movie.
Not the terrible U.S. version. But, you know, the original with that nice, great hallway scene that's one shot, and it's just so much carnage in that one shot. But it was just like a nice shot of that, the guy coming through with a knife, and he was just going to town. There were some cuts, but, I mean, even still, from what you saw, it was enough to be an impressively shot scene.
I'm guessing the second girl in the movie, Yingru Chen, her name was Molly. I think that was the girl who lost her eye. But Kat is on the subway, and we see the businessman, the angry businessman. Kat offers her seat to this young lady, sits down, and unfortunately she gets injured. Once this stuff spreads, like we said, this goes quick. People turn into pretty much savage animals. And one guy stabs this poor young lady in the eye with an umbrella, but she lives. As far as we knew, that she wasn't infected. She was just injured. Kat takes her to the hospital. They have some bumps along the way. Then the news breaks out. There's a military leader. There's a political figure. They're saying, hey, look, there's like an estimated 4.5 million people that are infected. We're not sure the exact cause, but this is like a contagious disease. You guys need to figure it out. Isolate yourselves, blah, blah, blah.
What did you think of the broadcast scene with the grenade?
Oh, it was an excellent kill. Excellent kill. And that's a good thing too, because we haven't talked a lot about the kills on this movie. And I don't think we talked about it last time with the menu, but if you're dying for some unique and funny kills and some like that was kind of cool, this is gonna have some of those for you.
The thing is that I don't think this movie was as much about the kills as just the way that the people were creative enough to think to torture someone.
That way, and the other part too is, you know, this kind of resets your narrative and your standard on how a zombie movie can go. Because like we said, in every other movie, I think of World War Z, I just see tons of people running at lightning speed and they're all on the same page. All these people are infected, yes, but they have control over.
Yeah, they have independent thoughts. They're not just driven by one purpose.
They have, but it's zombies with a personality. And that's the unique part of this movie, because yes, all these people have turned evil into evil versions of themselves, but there are some guys that are brutally going to chop people with an axe. There are some people that are like, I'm going to have sex even though I'm a zombie, and I'm going to do it with other people, which I'm going to
break bones instead of, killing and eating.
Right.
Because I feel like that maybe they had their arm broken like before the outbreak.
Exactly.
And they know the pain of it.
Exactly. There's got to be a deeper backstory as to why some of these people leaned a certain way into what they're doing. But at this point, what we're reviewing, we're at the hospital, and then panic breaks out. There's a fight, and Kat sits down and she sees the businessman. Now, at this point, the businessman is fully infected. He's killed some people along the way, and he's trying to kill Kat. He's holding the grudge, which is what I was talking about before, of keeping your personality and keeping somewhat of who you are in an evil version of yourself, which was unique to anything that I've ever seen before in a zombie genre. And he's stalking her. So Kat ends up going to the hospital, making her way around, meets a very deranged and very strange fella up in the maternity ward. And meanwhile, on the side, going back to Jim, he's trying to make his way to Kat. They haven't made contact just yet, I don't think. Or no, she stole some guy's phone. Yeah, they've made contact. Kat says, hey, I'm here. He's on his way. You feel bad for Jim because he's fighting off anybody he runs into. And
oh yeah, he's navigating the streets, and that's
super dangerous. Yeah, super dangerous to be out in the open like that. The crazy part about the maternity ward, Kat runs into a fellow in a biohazard looking suit. He makes her strip down, have a chemical wash. You think that he maybe is an employee of the hospital, or he's got this kind of, safe motive behind him. And you really find out quickly he's got kind of his own ulterior motive, and it's pretty sadistic himself, talking about infecting babies that he found at the hospital, trying to find a disease. He has a very Thanos vibe to him where he's like, I'm trying to do the greater good. And at what cost?
Yeah, when she finds that infected baby in the garbage, that was a bit surprising.
That one was tough. You're like, oh no, please don't let there be a baby in this trash bag. And you can see the effects. The baby is infected. So you understand why the young man in the hospital did that. But it's all around just a bad situation. It'll make you feel a type of way if you're not expecting it. I missed that part in there. I'm just making sure I saw everything right. He injected her with what he said should be the antidote.
He also said that during the shower, he had put something in the water that would cleanse everything that it could.
Right.
So, I mean, he really did lead her on with all that.
Yeah, it's true. It's hard to know exactly what happened. We do know that she had a chemical shower. She said it was very cold because of all the chemicals that were in. So it was a very cold shower. And then when she was washed, you could tell the water definitely affected her. But
she definitely
she's been cleansed.
Needed that shower, though. She had a lot of blood on her.
Man, she kills the businessman right before that, smashes his head with a fire extinguisher, which was brutal. There's a cool part in the movie, too, where you see this kind of juxtaposition there where, she's attacking him. She's very smart with the way she uses stuff. She's a fighter. Kat is a fighter.
I was wondering which part you were going to call cool.
She blinds him with a fire extinguisher and smashes his face in. And I'm like, this tiny little woman is doing all this carnage. And in a moment with, like I said, the juxtaposition of where she's at, she's just defending herself. He looks up, smiles, and says, "You're just like me. You're so violent."
Oh, yeah.
And that was a cool part of the movie. I really appreciated that because, like,
the entire floor of that hospital was all blood.
It was everywhere. People were having a bloody orgy and cutting people's junk off. Poor lady that got her eye stabbed eventually got abused by the businessman.
Oh, yeah.
Sexually in her eye hole. It was bad. Lucky for this movie.
Also, keep in mind, none of this is very graphic. Like, it's not zoomed in and focused on. It's a lot of implied horror and gore and gruesomeness, but it's implied enough to where you actually not only do you understand what's going on, but you feel a little bit of compassion for these people that are just having these terrible things done to them that you're not even really seeing.
Yeah, there's a lot of pan out and zoom away.
Like when the guy was getting his arm broken, it was one of those situations where he obviously had his arm tucked inside his shirt, and it was a fake arm.
Right. Yeah, there's a throwback to the WWE, early WWF Attitude Era where you zoom away because you can't show this stuff on TV, even though there's all kinds of blood and guts in this movie. The really, really tough stuff, they let you think on your own.
There's a lot of practical effects.
Yeah, a lot of that too. Adam warned me about that in this movie. He said, if blood might be your thing, but it might not. He's like, but the effects aren't the greatest. But man, they didn't spare any expense on, especially for blood in this movie. Like we said earlier in the movie, this is, if you need blood in your horror movie, you're going to get plenty of it here. But yeah, back on track. Getting close to the end is kind of a quick synopsis and rundown of the movie. But Kat ends up killing the antagonist, finally meets Jim again, and you can see in his eyes that he's infected. And for us, half a second there, I'm like, oh, cool, this is going to be like Twilight. They're going to work it out, and he's going to work past it. And I couldn't have been farther from the truth. Jim has turned into a sadistic person. They're talking through a gate that's locked, a steel door, kind of prison style, and he's telling her in bits and pieces left and right, kind of like bipolar, like, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to do these things. Hey, I really love you. I want to be with you. And you can feel the torment that she's going through because she's been waiting this whole time and going through all these crazy events. She just wants her boyfriend back. And unfortunately he's succumbed.
Yeah, he's gone.
He's out of there. Meanwhile, the crazy guy in the maternity ward we're talking about, he did work for the government, we found out, and he had a helicopter on the way. And I thought the ending of the movie was such a cool shot. You can hear her walking up the steps to go to the roof and get on a helicopter, and you can see Jim's face. He's bleeding out. He was struck in the neck by a bullet. and he's got this crazy smile on his face, and that's the ending credits, which I really, really enjoyed. Creepy, the creepiness level in this movie definitely revitalized me for some slasher and some gore films. So I'm excited again.
Now, we had been doing a lot of story-driven movies recently.
Yep.
So getting something a little bit more fast-paced that wasn't so... I'm not going to say the story in this movie is bad by any means. It's just you could watch this movie and kind of auto-coast through it a little bit because it's not essential to follow the story closely because you kind of know what's going on and what the main theme is. So, I mean, if you do follow it, you will realize there is a nice story with some lore there.
What I like in the theme, and I think it's only happened with maybe one or two of our movies, and I can't remember which one, but you know, there are sometimes in our reviews where we say, "Hey, the story's good, but the acting wasn't great," or "The actors are great, the story sucks." You know, for this is an hour and 39-minute movie. I watched it in about an hour and 10 minutes. I did fast forward through some things. I really wanted to get this review out because I've been meaning to get this done earlier, but I enjoyed this. This is one of those movies, and in the best way possible. This is not a negative. This is one of those you really don't have to think about anything.
No, it's not much of a thinker.
There's no mystery to this movie. There's no like, oh, I need nuance. No, this is straight to the point, and I really, really enjoy. And I'll say it as many times as we can to drive it home. This gives you a different look and this is a different house in the neighborhood of zombie films, and I appreciated that because it's, you know, there's been a baseline of everything before, like I've said, and they took a little twist, and it just adds so much flavor to the ideas that could come. Seeing different villains, and I'm like, they're having a conversation. They're advanced.
It felt so unique. It did.
I like that a lot. So I'm guessing when we do our numeric, here's our rating out of 10. I'm guessing we're going to be higher on this together, but I'm happy you picked this, man. I'm happy that it wasn't so story driven. I tend to fall trap into those because I feel myself in a lot of my horror wanting to be impressed by the plot and the acting.
Yeah.
And really what you need, you just need a good blood cleanse sometimes, man. You just need a good gore fest.
Yeah, it was splashing in this one a little bit.
There was blood everywhere. It was crazy. Oh, I love this movie, man. I'm not sure that I'd watch it again because
I wouldn't sit down and watch it again. And if I told my sister I was watching this, and she said I would never watch it. I said I wouldn't recommend it to you.
Right. This is going to be for your
harder core horror fans.
If you imagine this, guys. So I went to Scream, Horror Fest, Carolina Horror Fest last year. I met the lovely Neve Campbell, the Scream Queen, all kinds of famous people around, right? If I was having a conversation in line again at this year's Carolina Horror Fest, I would talk about this to people there that I know are fanatics.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not suggesting this movie to my brother or my dad. Let's just put it that way. You got to have like-minded individuals like Adam and myself that want to watch this. Our buddy Kyle, we do a Minnesota Vikings.
This might not be podcast. One you want to go to the water cooler and try to talk about.
No. This would be one of those when I've had a couple drinks with my friends. I'd be like, you want to hear some crazy shit I watched last week?
No, I did kind of mix up a little bit, and they merged together a little bit because I watched the first episode of The Last of Us right before I watched this.
I've heard it's wonderful.
So both are kind of, pandemic-y.
Okay.
So a little bit of that might have squirted over. I don't know if the scene that I was talking about the airplanes was in The Last of Us or in this movie.
I don't remember anything from airplanes, so maybe. But I also did skip through a little bits and pieces of this movie.
But yeah, I mean, this one, it's just... I'd seen so many people, even on TikTok, talking about how this was one of their favorite horror movies of recent history. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, I haven't seen this. And all the other movies on the list are ones that, were either major releases or, big franchises. And I was like, okay, if this is getting this much attention, I should check it out. Then I went and put it in Google and I saw that it was getting some good reviews. And I was like, all right, maybe this is worth checking out.
Well, I'm glad you suggested it, man. Like I said, I'm not sure where exactly. I know Twitter, some other places you'll get suggestions from, but I'm happy with watching this. It was a bloodbath, but it was pretty necessary if you're a fan of these kind of genres in horror movie, because you and I, we've grown up on the slashers,
Right.
and now we've seen horror as soon as, and I credit it to Scream a lot, but I'm just a Scream fanatic, is once we got horror like back on the map in like the 90s after, Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, all that.
Yeah.
Horror is here to stay now, which I love. There's so many ways you can go. You talked about Midsummer earlier. That's kind of an artistic indie.
I do want to
way
say
to
one
go.
quick thing that's not related to this movie at all.
Sure.
Did you see Adrienne King got signed on to the new Friday the 13th TV project?
I did not.
That is super exciting because I don't know if you noticed or not, but she was the final girl from the first Friday the 13th movie that was in the boat at the end.
Oh, okay. Nice. Okay, nice. So initially what you said, because I brought up A Nightmare on Elm Street, I kept thinking of that, and I was like, a boat. That's Friday the 13th. And then I'm processing all the words that you said. I was like, he said Friday the 13th. Yeah. That is awesome. Okay, sweet.
I was super excited about that because, like we were talking about horror being back on the map, I haven't watched any of the new season of Chucky or anything like that yet. I super plan on it because I enjoyed the first season. And honestly, I mean, I know a lot of people didn't like the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and especially the remake of Firestarter. Heard a lot of terrible people saying terrible things about all that, but honestly, if you give me any sort of really horror thing to grab onto, I'll check it out, and I'll probably end up liking it more than most people.
I like to think we have an open-minded thought process here. We'll have to decide on some things. We don't take every single suggestion that we get and do a review on everything. But
much like some of the other movies we've watched, this is not in English.
Nope. And you know what? I didn't mind it at all. And I didn't find myself worrying about that.
Did you get a sub or a dub?
No, I just got subtitles. I didn't want a dub. I'm kind of glad I didn't get that because it's a little distracting. I feel like I haven't watched a movie with voice.
The version I watched actually had both.
Really? Okay. I find that anytime there are voiceovers, I can just tell
when the lip movement doesn't match what they're saying.
It doesn't match. It's I can tell you're not the race, you're not the nationality, you're not from that part of the world. You're trying to depict from this person, and I'm like, this is throwing me off so bad. So it was nice to hear it in their authentic, original language. But I could read what they were saying, and there were some things in there, like you could hear him say, I'm glad that the word shit is universal. Because that was in the beginning for me. That was really fun.
Yeah, that's one thing is Kyle and I will not shy away from foreign horror. Horror is horror, and you can enjoy it no matter where it was made, what language it's in. I think that's a concept that kind of transcends language boundaries.
You'll have to help me, man. I said it jokingly in our personal chat between you and I as early onset dementia, but we did another foreign film, and it was all subtitles, and I remember loving it.
Oh, yeah, we've done several. Blood Red Sky was one that was all subtitles that I really liked.
Yes, Blood Red Sky was great. I feel like there was one in between that as well. We've enjoyed the heck out of it. I enjoy that because what I feel is Hollywood, if they can jump into anything major, it's going to be pretty predictable. I like the free thinking process of stuff like this. That I really enjoy that. And like I said,
when Hulu releases a movie like Grim Cuddy and they're releasing it as horror, and then you watch this, it's like, are these are not the same? Why? How can you say these are both just horror movies?
Now we're doing the genre labeling. It makes me think of music. That makes me so mad. I'm like, this is not this at all. You're just doing this to pump up the sales on this side of the album chart.
It's like how in the Oscars, if it's not a drama, they automatically just throw it in comedy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, this isn't funny.
It's not funny. Or it's a rom-com. No, that was a drama that should have been here. Yeah, that's so funny you said that. I didn't even notice that.
I don't know if you've watched Grim Cuddy, but man, it is not this.
No, I haven't, but I'll have to check it out now that you mention it because I want to see what it's up against.
Oh, it's a weird movie.
Going back to what we said, and we'll wrap it up. Yeah, man. Since horror has finally like reestablished itself, and there's a whole neighborhood and different classes. Like we've done. What were the 3 movies we did not too long ago? It was on Netflix. It was a throwback
Oh,
to
the
the
Fear
80s.
Streets?
Fear Streets. Amazing movies. I loved every single one of those. Some more than others,
They were fun.
but they're fun. That has its wheelhouse and its niche. You know, if you're into Stranger Things, you'll love this part. If you're into zombies, you'll like this movie. We did The Menu on our last review, and that's more of like a character driven. I would call it a thriller. Like there's such a broad range of houses in the neighborhood of horror now that will gladly do. But I'm glad to see that in this particular house in the neighborhood of horror that they gave a fresh idea. And
Yeah.
for me, it's going to get a higher rating than normally what I give. I won't watch it again, like you said, but I'll give this movie a 6.9 out of 10.
The reason I won't watch this movie isn't because I didn't enjoy it, because I did. It's just that there's a certain level of brutality you have to be in a mind. I'd have to be in a mindset for to want to watch this again, because it's not really uplifting in any way. It wasn't. I know that some darker people might get some laughs out of it, but it's just I didn't, so it wasn't for me that way. It's just kind of something that if I need to disturb myself, but if I'm going to do that, I'm going to watch a newer horror movie and see if I can get that from that, just to see, something newish. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I am actually going to go quite a bit higher than you. I'm going to give this an 8.
Nice. Yeah, I was flirting with the 7. I was like, do I go flat on the 7? I give it just below that. There's a little cheesiness to this movie too. But overall, I don't have any, we go through, we kind of nitpick
If the
things.
practical effects could have been a little more realistic, I probably would have jumped it up a little bit more even.
Same.
But overall, I can't complain. I felt the actors did a good job. The story, the situations were top-notch. The cinematography was very good.
Yep.
I can't make a lot of complaints.
I can't. We'll nitpick stuff on other movies. Like I really enjoyed The Menu. I thought the mood, and the one we did before that, I was talking about lighting and how that affects everything.
It was not hard to watch this movie and get what was supposed to be taken away from this one.
Yeah, no, you know what was happening here. That's a good point. Yeah, I liked. There's some scenes where there's panic, and like you have to, in the beginning when the guy realizes, oh god, these people are infected with something, I have to run. There's action shots that you would see in a Jason Bourne or Jason Statham movie.
Oh, yeah.
And you're getting chased, and I see that. And then I see everything in this movie was pretty well crafted. The actors were great. I love the fact that the main villain for most of the movie was not who I expected it to be. I like the fact we talked about that this movie did not end in the Hollywood, oh, they're happily ever after. And there was a realness to this movie, kind of like life, like,
would this movie have felt a lot different to you if the couple would have reunited and made it to the helicopter?
I would have had different feelings about it, yeah. I like that they didn't do that, though. They kept it pretty real, and like I was just saying, this has a realness to it, which is kind of scary. I hope nothing like this happens, but they really drove it home. There was a good mixture and a cocktail of, yeah, this is zombie stuff. We don't think this will ever happen here on Earth, but that bringing in the pandemic and what we just went through, there was a real like stiffness about like, oh shit, this is kind of like what we were just going through,
Now I'm going to throw a little bit of real life in here. I went to the doctor's office yesterday for a checkup, and I completely forgot the pandemic was a thing. So when I walked in there, I had to put they want you to put a mask on, and I was like, I forgot this was a thing, because I live so far out in the woods by myself that it's just easy to forget.
Yeah. I'm in the South. Adam is up north. I'm in the South, and a lot of people down here didn't believe in it at the start. But going into I'm a veteran, so I went to the VA not too long ago. The VA here in Charlotte, they are 100%. You will wear a mask in here, and I was like, oh shit, I don't have one. Luckily, they have them at the entrance.
Oh yeah, they got the station there. I forgot to grab mine from my car because my nephew gave me a ride to the doctor's office.
That's funny you had that. I had the same thing last Friday. I was like, oh, we're still doing that.
But yeah, in the event of some sort of outbreak, where I live, I would have probably the most notice of most people.
Yep.
before I had to make a decision. And I've got so many canned goods and stuff like that stocked up that I'd be good for quite a while.
Nice.
And I don't stock up on canned goods because I'm a hoarder or anything. It's all stuff that my parents had, before they passed on. So it's like I just got tons and tons of boxes of like creamed corn and stuff like that, which I don't love creamed corn, but if you're hungry, creamed corn is going to be fantastic.
I'm a big cream corn fan.
Give me a whole kernel if you can.
Now that I do prefer, but it makes me think of Christmas time and the holidays. That was always one of the good sides around here. Maybe they just did it right. Maybe they cooked it the way I liked it. Yeah, this is a great movie, guys. Give it a whirl. You're not going to throw this on like if Shawshank Redemption or
do not eat creamed corn while watching this movie.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't eat anything. I made that mistake and I promptly put my food down. I ate after the movie. But yeah, like Shawshank or Titanic or whatever classic. This isn't one of those movies. If you saw it on TV, you're like, oh, let's sit down and watch the sadness. But if you're a horror fan, like I said, if you're gonna see me and Adam at a horror convention, we'll talk about this. You'll be like, I'm glad that I watched it.
If you're planning a date night, this might not be the best.
This is not your date night movie, no.
Unless you really want her to like jump and everything like that, or I guess him to jump because guys can be scaredy pantses too these days, of course.
That's crazy. Yeah, well, maybe if they do sit through this and they like it, maybe that is the one for you. But this is gonna be a tall task.
Yeah,
to get through this one together. But yeah, I would say check it out. If you're into stuff as much as Adam and I are, this is one of those that you won't be disappointed in.
It is currently streaming on AMC Plus and Shudder.
Yep, and you can get that through Amazon, which is what I did. You can do a free trial for 7 days and not have to re-up. So thanks, Amazon. I appreciate it.
You can also search for alternative means to watch movies, although I don't recommend it.
There is that way. We may or may not have dabbled in that before. Do everything legally.
Right. As legal as possible. But yeah, thanks fun, again so much because I know we didn't have anybody join us in the chat today, aside from one sex bot from YouTube, which is always nice.
Yeah, we will find a girl for
Only
you.
Only an 84% chance they'll find a girl for me. I will be that 16%. Remember when Match said that they had 99% success rate? I filled out my profile and they said I was unmatchable. I was the 1%.
Oh.
That was me.
You and I will be in the 16% where it's like, hi, my name's Cheryl. Like, no, we're good. We're good here.
But yeah, if you have any suggestions, hit us up on social media.
Yep.
Twitter is probably the best for me at MNVikingZombie, or send me a message on Twitch as well. You can do that if you like. But that is also MNVikingZombie. I have that mostly everywhere. Hey, they hit us up again. They came back.
They saw that I put that up there. Want to find love? Our AI will help. Thank you so much for that.
We appreciate that. But yeah, we'll be back to talk about more horror movies because I love doing this.
Definitely.
Oh, there we go. Oh, Mandy. I have not yet really seen Mandy, so I may have to check that out.
She broke up with him.
By the way, that's my cousin Ed right there.
What's up, Ed? Thank you for joining in. It's always fun. I don't know if you can see the chat that's going on with all the love above you from YouTube.
Oh, no, he's on Twitch. He can't see that.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of these, Ed, if you didn't see this earlier. We're glad that an actual person is watching this, but this was a fun one. Yeah, this is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, Ed, this might be one that you want to watch. Cherie might want to not check it out as much, but
yeah, probably not.
She's got a tough stomach too.
I do have some coming up that I'm going to suggest for Adam if he wants to. He doesn't have to. He said, "No, I'm good." There's one
brutal.
coming up with Dave Bautista that looks really good.
I saw the ad for that. Yeah.
Looks good, looks different. I'm a big fan of his. I know you love wrestling, and I love watching his transition to acting because unlike
when that
The Rock,
hits streaming, we'll check it out.
What's that?
When that hits streaming, we'll check it out.
We will definitely do that. It's on my birthday this year. I told you guys I'm a Scream fanatic. Scream 6 is coming out. I will be there day one or the night before to watch it. But
the
March
last
10th,
one was bad.
I like the last one. I have a feeling this one's going to throw me over the edge because they're trying to do that Jason Takes Manhattan thing. When I saw the Scream,
Jason Takes Manhattan.
It's one of my least favorite Jason movies. Yeah.
See, where you probably started liking Jason a bit more is when they started doing some of the psychic power things, and that's when I started hating it.
I liked the original after the very first one. When I saw 2, when Jason was the actual killer, and then the transition to the mask
from like 1 to 5 is great.
Those are my favorite ones. 2 to 4 you can't beat. Those are the ones that I would continuously rent at the VHS movie store back in the day. But yeah, they get a bit weird after that.
6 and 7, I was just kind of like, no, and 9 is trash.
Yeah, 9's really bad. Is that Jason Goes to Hell?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was very bad.
I like Jason X just because it was funny. If you go in it wanted to have a good time, it's a good time.
They had good kills in that movie. We reference that in Nashville. Shout out to the homies in Nashville all the time of the deep freeze in the face. And I love the one where he just beats the shit out of the girls.
But we're at 46 minutes on this review, so we should probably let anybody who's watching this go. So yeah. Thanks again to Ed for joining on in. If you got any suggestions, hit us up. We are more than open to that, especially if it's a newer streaming movie. And we'll be back to talk about something. Don't know what yet, but we'll figure it out. All right. In the meantime,